Hi, my friends, it's Meredith with Soul Navigation, and today I am going to go deep into the life and the death of George Floyd. And I'm also going to show you his murderer, Derek Chauvin. And I want you to know that I truly believe wholeheartedly that Black Lives Matter. And that is why I want to do this video for you. I want to look at George's death through an astrological lens. And in doing so, I have found so many intriguing and interesting things. It's like unraveling the ball of yarn. I want to show you these secret and sort of shocking astrological transits that reveal a deeper story to me. I want to ask you, please only leave nice comments or have nothing to say at all. I just want to show you this man's purpose for living. I want to show you why he died and what transits were in play. I had to peel the onion pretty far down to get into seeing the deeper truths. And I also want to go into the psyche of Derek Chauvin and why he took George's life. How can a Pisces be a murderer? It's mind-boggling. We're working with a Libra and a Pisces. So I'm going to show you George's birth chart, and I'm also going to show you his death chart and then Chauvin's birth chart. But I want to say I don't really believe in death. I believe that the soul lives eternally and forever. And I also believe that he is still with us in spirit. I also want to take a minute to send love and blessings out to his family. And if they ever see this or watch this, I pray that it gives them a little peace. And I hurt with them. I cried incessantly watching his funeral, and I fell in love with him and his spirit and his joy. And so it was the catalyst for me to want to do this video. I wanted to study this man. I wanted to know this man more. And now I want to share with you what I've uncovered. So come with me. Now, I have been talking about the 22 degree because it is where we have had this massive, massive collision with 22 degree Capricorn, where we had Pluto and the South Node and Saturn all colliding. Please go watch the entire playlist where I talk about these transits and how January 12th ushered in this giant explosive energy. It is absolutely shell-shocking. You will be shocked when you watch that video. You will think I am talking exactly about the movement that George Floyd has created. On January 12th, 2020, Pluto collided at 22 degrees Capricorn with Saturn in the South Node, and it ushered in a potential teardown of our entire society with COVID and unknowingly with George Floyd. This is the degree that Pluto and Saturn will eventually return to. This degree has been a player in our lives for so long, and George has it as the stage and the foundation of his chart. You can't make this up. The video is called How Will Life Change in 2020? Massive Lunar Eclipse in Cancer, January 10th. The 22 degrees, as I say in the other video as well, when it collides with the South Node, Pluto and Saturn, it is a power tripping moment. It is when somebody will dominate you, oppress you, suppress you, hurt you, kill you, wound you, strip you, rip you, cut you. It is bad. And we have all felt that with COVID. And we have lost so many people worldwide that it has done that. George experienced that as well. The death of George has woken us up, but unfortunately, that poor man had to suffer so badly. Now he has that degree, 20 degrees Capricorn, in his chart at the foundation. I promise you, He had been experiencing oppression, repression, somebody power tripping over him all year long. And it didn't just start January 12th, but it got really tight. I know he was experiencing this probably for all of his life, but for sure to a heightened degree in 2019 and in 2020. That Pluto-Saturn South Node is sitting right smack on his IC. That is the most important place in the chart. The IC, the MC, the ascendant, and the descendant. When you have planets on one of those angles, shit happens. So right now, I want to take you to George Floyd's birth chart. We've got October 14th, 1973 in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Now, we don't know his birth time exactly, but I want to tell you a trick. If you don't know somebody's birth time, what you can do is a sun on the ascendant right up here. The sun is on the ascendant because this is how the person perceives themselves. This is how George experienced himself. This is what he thought about himself. This is how he envisioned himself. And this is his concept of self. And I have found this to be really profound and really, really helpful. So if you're working with somebody whose time you don't know, I want you to just put the sun on the ascendant. It's like they see themselves for who they are. Let's go into this because it's pretty interesting. It's really fascinating. He's got lots going on here. He's got all this Sagittarius. He is a Libra with Uranus. So this is unpredictable and born a revolutionary, born a maverick in some way. He is unique. He is individualistic and he is cataclysmic. He will be a catalyst in this world around Libra themes: peace, love, unity, diplomacy, brokering negotiations. He brings in authority, protective Cancerian. The crab has a shell, right? Protective Cancerian authority around ninth house issues, laws, government, a belief system, religion, truth, justice, truth and justice for all. His moon and Mars in the 7th house makes him a vigilante for unions. His highest self becomes the humanitarian that touches people in the most personal of ways. The assault on his soul was so deeply, deeply emotional and intimate. Now, what we're going to do is put a bi-wheel on the time that he died. And I am using the time of May 25th, 2020 at 8:20 p.m. in Minneapolis. So he's on the inside. And then we're putting his death chart, if you will, the time of his passing, when his soul left his body. Now, I don't personally even believe in death. I believe the soul lives eternally. I just believe the body is on loan to the soul. I don't believe in death. I'm just using the word death for the collective because that's what most people understand. But I want you to see that May 25th, 2020, that is a day frozen in time. And that the outer wheel becomes his death chart. It becomes his last day of life. This is his birth chart, the portal where his soul entered Earth, and this is the portal where his soul left Earth. Interesting that the Sun and Venus are in the 8th house, the house of death, the house of loss, divorce, suffering, and death, the house of gruesome loss, the house of the taboo, the unspeakable. The sun was transiting the house, his house. See, this is his 8th house of death. A couple things were happening. He was having a reverse nodal axis where the past karma, look at this, the past karma, South Node, returns to you. And hopefully you do something better. You show your growth. You show your evolution as a soul. You rise up. You rise up. This man created a revelation and a revolution. He was the phoenix that rose from the ash, literally. It's in the chart. When you have a reverse nodal axis at the time of your death will change the world. Your death will change the collective. And because of that woman, that brave, brave woman who took the video, because of her, I'd love to see her chart in Synastry with George's. If anybody knows her name, if anybody can find her name and her birth time, please share it with me in the comments below, because I would love to know who that guardian angel for George Floyd is. We do credit George's life for awakening this world. She collaborated with him like this. And without her video, without her courage, a lot of people said she should have done something other than video. That's all she could have done with 4 cops staring her down. Who is she? I bet you anything she touches his vertex or his destiny line in the north and south node, or his soul, or his heart. She is somewhere profound in his chart. And please forgive me for my passion. I don't think you'll see one other video on here where I am this passionate. And it's because I am just utterly disgusted. I can't believe what I'm seeing. I am repulsed, I am revolted, I am emblazoned, emboldened, and impassioned. So forgive me for my outrage. So I want to show you a couple of things. I took notes so I wouldn't make a mistake. So the moon is square his sun, right there. The moon at 14 degrees is square his sun. And when the moon squares the sun, there's a division between what you want and what you need. And he clearly did not get what he needed. He clearly did not get what his soul or his heart, the sun and the moon, deserved. He did not get it. It was in conflict. It was in agony. It was grief-stricken. And that's what squares do. This square, this aspect, he didn't survive. And the sun and the moon, there's nothing more personal than that. And the sun and the moon will make this up close and in your face for the whole world to see, experience, and feel. And if you were not moved or touched, and by the way, I don't know one single soul on the planet that was not moved and touched and mortified and horrified by the death of this man, George Perry Floyd. We have to look at Pluto. That's in his chart in the 12th house. And that is the planet of death. And look at this. It sits in perfect trine to the transiting sun in the 8th house of death. In the 8th house of death. Is that not crazy? The sun is in the 8th house of death, transiting his planet of death in the 12th house of imprisonment. The 12th house is when you are imprisoned. You are shut in. You are suffocated. And the sun is also trine to Jupiter in Aquarius in the 4th house. Jupiter in Aquarius is the true humanitarian. This man cared deeply and intimately about humanity, about people. And this sun in trine to Pluto in the 12th, his death planet, and his highest self. Jupiter is your highest self. It is where you will reach your maximum potential in Aquarius, the humanitarian, in the 4th house of the deepest part of the soul. This man will move humanity at the deepest part of the soul of mankind, Aquarius. It is moving the collective through his death and shining a light on his death will create this massive, intense, emotional, fourth house, Aquarian, Jupiter movement. His death will put into action a higher calling, and through his death, a spiritual healing, 12th house spiritual rebirth, death and rebirth will occur. This man will help heal the world. Look at this. Transiting Saturn is on his Jupiter. He was held back from feeling his dream. He wanted to be important. He wanted to be empowered. And his dream was Saturn, restricted, constricted, stolen from him. By whom? Saturn, the authority, the cop, the Napoleon complex. Saturn at its worst. Saturn in its ugliest self. He was also about to have a Jupiter return. You know, on January 1st, 2021, Jupiter would be exact at 2 degrees Aquarius. And so he was in it, but it would have gone exact January 1st, 2021. But he didn't get to see it. And what happens in a Jupiter return? It's the best days of your life. It's when you bear the fruits of all your hard labor and hard work. It is when you literally hit your personal jackpot. You know what? I think January 1st, 2021, his Jupiter return at 2 degrees Aquarius, which is a belief in mankind, I think our belief system will be restored. But it comes at the cost of his life. This man laid down his life for us unknowingly. This is huge. Pluto at the IC, and I want to go into this, but this is so dramatic, and I'm going to get passionate about it. All year long, we had Saturn and Pluto in the South Node playing with his IC. This is the IC, this is the MC. This is one of the 4 single most important lines in the chart. It's called the angles. This, the AC and the descendant, the midhaven, and the IC. Those are the pulse of the chart. So please go watch my other video called Cataclysmic Change 2020, Saturn conjunct Pluto at 22 degrees Capricorn. How will it affect you? Pay attention around 4 minutes, because this is where I talk about the severity of the impact of this degree. Watch this video. It is just magical. Do not miss this video. At 4 minutes in, I talk about the 22 degrees again and how it takes until December 20th, 2020 to completely unfold. And I talk a lot about the 22 degrees in this whole entire video. I talk about the shock, and I talk about the revolt around rules and regulations. And I even say, people will not stand up for being suppressed or oppressed, and there will be an intolerance about being invisible and being not seen. Let's talk about Mars in the 7th. This man had hidden enemies. He also had a lot of friends. Moon in the 7th, he attracted everybody. Mars in the 7th, he had enemies. He had big enemies, and Chavin was one of them. He attracted jealousy, probably because he had an easiness about his life, probably because he had an ease inside of himself. You know, George liked himself, and he liked life. Sagittarius at 5 degrees in the 2nd house. But this also shows me the death of his mother. Mars on the moon. It's wide, it's far, I'm still counting it. The loss of his mother. You know, Mars in the 7th literally means betrayal from others, especially others who are supposed to do you right, especially others that are supposed to protect you and care for you. And the death of his mom probably felt like a betrayal from God. It probably did. He learned over time not to trust people. With the moon right there, super close to the 8th house, this man longed for intimacy. He longed for connection. He longed for feeling valued. He longed for love. Now, with the moon in Taurus, he had a fixation around money. And with it opposing Mercury, it was hard sometimes for him to get it. And he could go to the low side of Mercury in Scorpio to find it. He needed money, he valued money, and his mind is in conflict around it. So he had a hard relationship to money. He had a really hard relationship to money. Let's go look at this South Node. This shows me the karma that he came into the world with. This shows me his past life. This shows me his deepest wound. This shows me also his lowest self, like where he can really go. And what wounded him terribly, the traumatic karmic wound that he had in this lifetime. And with Saturn there, and it's all in Cancer, there's a couple of things. One, I think authority always tried to restrain him, Cancer him in the 9th house of Sagittarius. This is the house where you want unbridled freedom. This is a soul that believed in deep personal freedoms, and he had a belief system around free expression, a free to believe and think what you want. But with Saturn there, this was restricted. This was limited. The loss of his mother, Cancer, Saturn, loss, South Node karma, devastated him. It limited him. It hurt him. It set him back. It wounded him. It was another death of his own self. When his mama died, he died. You can see that his mom was critical and was so important to him. And she was taken from him. She was blocked from him. He had constrictions and restraints and blockages. That's what Saturn is. And his other relationships with females probably suffered as well. He probably had blocks and felt restraint and felt limited inside his relationships with women. Let's go right here where Venus and Neptune are exactly conjunct in the 2nd house. He was trying to become a self-sustaining man. He was trying to become a self-sustaining man. And the 2nd house shows us our self-esteem, our self-worth. We are trying to become self-sustaining. He was working on self-esteem. He was learning how to value Venus himself. Venus shows me his worth, but Neptune erodes it. And at times he felt his value was eroded. He felt that his value was invisible, and it affected his self-esteem. At times, I think he had a tremendous amount of Sagittarius self-esteem. And then other times he completely evaporated and people didn't see him, even though he was 6'7". And at the same time, he was a healer and he loved people. Neptune, Venus, that is unconditional love. And non-judgmental Sagittarius, unconditional love in its highest self. Sagittarius accepts all people in its highest form. It becomes very rigid and self-righteous in its lowest form. But he was a safe, healing place for underdogs and probably those who are wounded or addicted. The vertex is key in understanding George's death. What is the vertex? Let's just call it a life-changing encounter. There was this brilliant and really innovative astrologer named Charles Jane, who helped us come to understand the vertex. And he called the intersection of the ecliptic and the prime vertical in the west the vertex. So the vertex is this really sensitive point. When you delineate the vertex, you know that you are working with a karmic destiny. And here's his vertex at 14 degrees. Look at the vertex that day. It is at the highest point in his chart. and it is opposing Pluto. This is a day of destiny. This is a day of death destiny, and it is also on the moon, meaning people will feel this intensely. This day will be so deeply emotional, so deeply emotional. Wherever the vertex is, it shows you fated encounters. It is, now your personal vertex is sort of the ray of energy that's supposed to, the destiny that's supposed to be cultivated in this lifetime. The vertex is a place where we will give ourselves over to something beyond the scope of our own life and in which we have no control. So it's what you draw into your life. And look at the vertex sitting right there at the very highest point in the chart. That is the highest point in the chart. And we had an emotional day of deep, soulful destiny. What was the subject around? This Pluto in opposition, an unfair, unjust, authoritarian death. Now, George's vertex in Sagittarius, he was expected to develop a broad vision and a deeper understanding of the significance of life. He was supposed to go beyond the facts. He was supposed to develop a new philosophical belief system, and he would become inspired by reaching toward a higher truth. Now, how I see this is with Neptune transiting wide his vertex, I believe this man was called. And I believe that he and his destiny, his personal destiny, and also with it up here, trining the universal vertex of the day, and with it squaring, so it's in negative aspect to his destiny, but it is in harmony or positive aspect to our or the collective destiny, those who he left behind. I feel that he was here to promote and to bring understanding of really, really difficult, horrible situations that needed to be changed. His death gives us a broader vision of claiming our faith in ourself. And he will show us right here in his destiny will show us or teach us that we must have faith in something larger than ourselves, like a Black Lives Matter movement, like justice for all, like justice for African Americans who have suffered so deeply, or for dark-skinned people all around the world. His vertex is so powerful. It's wide, but it conjuncts Venus and Neptune. It's wide, but he kind of relied on his charms, and he relied kind of on his personality. There's a love of beauty, and there's an active social life that he put a lot of energy and effort. But when you have the vertex on Venus and Neptune, you become popular, and it comes effortlessly or with ease. Now, I'm not saying his death, not the death piece, but I think he was very popular in a very effortless way in his own communities before he died. Now, when Venus, when the vertex is conjunct Neptune right here, you attract either really strong personalities in your life because you become weak to the strong, or you are the strong to the weak. And look at his life. I think he took in weaker souls, or souls that were wounded, if you will, and they leaned on his strong shoulder. And then what happened to him? He found a man who abused his power and his strength to literally take the breath out of his lungs, and he became the wounded one. He also, with Neptune on the vertex, he's going to attract drugs and alcohol and those who are addicted to those things. And he's also going to attract deception into his life. And there's going to be a huge need for realism. And that's what I think his death did. I think his death right here in the vertex gave us a huge wake-up call, gave people who don't understand that Black Lives Matter a reality check. And I feel like this Black Moon Lilith we've got to talk about. So the vertex and the Black Moon Lilith are just critical in George's death. So Black Moon Lilith is known as the woman before Eve who just would not submit to Adam. And she felt that they were born equals and she wasn't less than him. And because of that, she was banished to basically the dark side or hell. And she became the mother of all demons. And she lives inside of us in some way. It is our shadow side. And we have to look at her and work with her to make her healthy. But she was suppressed and she was cast aside. So we see inequality wherever she is. And this is the deepest, darkest parts of our psyches. This is where we have a fear about our power. This is where we feel shame and beaten down and disempowerment, and where we have our deepest insecurities. And when she's healthy and she's capable, she wants to take her power back and move past the destruction, move past the suppression. And in the vertex, his destiny, he did just that. He is moving us past the thing that was plaguing us, the plague, if you will, of oppression and suppression of Blacks. And he moved us into a higher calling, because I do believe that we are going to reform cops and the way they interact with African Americans and anyone of dark skin, and just reform cops in general, but especially in that way. So Black Moon Lilith is mysterious, but it's a really dark place in the chart. And it's actually a point in the moon's orbit. It's not a body in the sky. It's just a point. But it is also the dark part of your personality, and it's the hidden part of your psyche. And it tells you how you're going to respond to conflict situations when there is no one to help you out. And how is he going to do it? With love. Venus and Neptune. Now, I know that he has a dark side as well. And this Neptune can make him delusional and illusional, create illusions at time. And so sometimes he probably had bad boundaries and didn't understand it. And I know that he went to the dark side a few times. He has a criminal past. And this Neptune, got him off track a few times. And I do get that. But in his highest self, he would handle this dark moon with a charm and a grace. And that's why he called Chavin Sir. But this dark moon, Black Moon Lilith, is like a black hole in our life. It is a part of our life that is so painful to look at. But when we do go into our darkest feelings or our depressed parts, the parts of ourselves that we don't like, we can heal. It's when we will get to the light, that we can find the truth of who we are. So we have to look at our suppressed grief. And Martin Luther King said, we have a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. That was Martin Luther King. And he was also born with Black Moon Lilith in Sag. So was Deepak Chopra and Susan Sarandon and Audrey Hepburn, and UNICEF's birth chart is with Dark Moon Lilith, Jane Fonda, Cher, David Bowie. Even when Rosa Parks didn't sit on the back of the bus in December 1955, it was a Black Moon Lilith day. I couldn't believe that when I looked that up. When Black Moon Lilith is in Sag, it functions with Sagittarius energy. And so George, along with all those other people that I just mentioned, would have had a life preoccupied with the theme of ethics and oppression versus freedom, just like a good Sagittarius. And he would be asking the questions, or he would end up through his death have the world ask, what is our responsibility for what is right? What is my personal responsibility? And how do we continue to resist the abusiveness of unjust systems? You know, these are questions that live inside of a person with Black Moon Lilith. And not only did he live with it inside, it is his destiny to express it. And that is exactly what he is doing right now from heaven above. Okay, the Sun conjunct Uranus, restless and a need to be free. So we've got all this freedom, and all this freedom, right? This man wanted to be free, free, and free. This man is going to create freedom, a new kind of freedom, a freedom that people should already have, but they don't. You know, he was kind of larger than life, and the world could not contain him. You cannot hold the energy of a Uranian sun sign person. You can't. That's like trying to hold lightning in a bottle. It doesn't work. And he was always restrained with that Saturn South Node right there in Cancer, and with Capricorn in the 4th house. He felt the world was too small for him sometimes, and he was determined to be unique and different. And isn't he that? He was one of a kind, and he knew it. And he was also unstable and erratic and restless, and that's where he made bad decisions. He was probably really funny and fun and loving and jovial with all that Sag and with this creative thinking. He was probably so funny. Who would ever know, you know, what would pop out of that guy's mouth? But when the Sun is on Uranus, he becomes a maverick. He becomes a revolutionary. He becomes an iconic, massive humanitarian, rooting on the underdog, taking a stance for those who can't speak for themselves. And in many ways, he cared more about other people than his own self. With Pluto in the 12th, and it's in an exact quincunx, almost exact to Mars in the 7th, this man was imprisoned. This man was jailed and imprisoned, and he was left to die. He could not trust the people that were supposed to take care of him. Somebody who was supposed to care about him killed him in a previous life. Now let's go look at Chavin. Okay, here is Derek Chauvin, March 19th, 1976. And I put him in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I'm also using the sunrise chart with this because this is how he saw himself. You know, it's hard to believe that a Pisces can even be a murderer, truthfully. It's hard to believe that a Cancer can be a murderer. And then we see that Jeffrey Dahmer and O.J. Simpson did it. So here we have this Pisces, undeveloped, low shadow side of Pisces, because when Pisces operates at its highest level, it is the earth angel. And I do think Chavin thought of himself as saving the world. I do. I think he thought of himself in a narcissistic and pathological way, where he probably thought he was everybody's guardian angel, right? In a sick and twisted way. Now, he is a highly emotional man. And he is born so close to the 29th degree. And you know me in the 29th degree. This man was born into crisis. Now listen to this. I want to tell you, not only is it the last degree of a sign, it's the last degree of the whole entire zodiac. So you have the dragon's head, and then you have the dragon's tail. And this is the tip of the tail. So he is at the 360th degree. It is the crisis degree. It is the last breath of the zodiac. And it is the last breath before it moves into the next sign, Aries. And he is in the shadow side of Pisces. He is so delusional about his power and who he is, and he has no clear idea of who he really is being. He knows who he thinks he is, and he has no idea of who he actually is. So we have to look at this black moon Lilith on his sun. This black moon Lilith. Now, if you have black moon Lilith on your sun, it doesn't mean you're going to be a murderer. It means you got to do some deep shadow work. And if you don't, your life is going to go dark. And this man clearly has not done shadow work. He hasn't looked at his own self. He has suppressed it. And when you look at him, he is so stoic, right? I am telling you, he is a highly, highly emotional man. You just don't see it. He wears a stone face because he's afraid of the dark places inside of him. He's afraid of his emotions. And when dark moon Lilith, I should say, sorry, not dark moon, black moon Lilith is on his sun and in Aries, he devalues his own soul. There is self-hatred down there. That's why he doesn't dare look at it, and that's why he takes it out on others. I'm going to give you the keywords for it. There will be violence. If you don't sort yourself out, there will be violence. There will be a temper. There will be resentments. There will be egomania. There will be jealousy. There will be possessiveness. There will be attacks. There will be battles. There will be war. This man created a war with the world. This man with black moon Lilith on the sun, he wants to be on the front line. He wants to be first, and mostly he will win at all costs, won't he? So Mercury and Venus are in the 12th house. This man has had love affairs and secrets with money, with sex, with love, with women, and with lies. And I'm telling you, it's going to come out. We will find out. Not surprised his wife divorced him the day he got thrown in jail. Not surprised. The chart ruler, let's go look at that. So the chart ruler is Neptune in Sagittarius. When the 9th house goes wrong, it's about taking laws and justice and into our own hands and becoming bombastic and self-righteous and rigid and intolerant. And we become fixed. Sagittarius becomes very fixed when it goes wrong. It becomes fixed in its own ideas and its own opinions. Now, that day, let me just show you, we can see here that he was in a midlife crisis because Uranus is opposing Uranus. And a midlife crisis that goes wrong, well, we've all seen it, right? We have all seen it before. But this is taking it to the extreme. And his Uranus is in the house of death and transformation. The 8th house is the darkest house, and it's opposing Taurus in Uranus. So he has completely wild and unpredictable behavior, and he felt like he could not access his power. So he had to press harder and harder. He also had transiting Venus squaring his sun. So we have Venus right here in the 3rd house giving orders, and he made sure people were going to listen to him. The 3rd house is communication. So Venus squaring the sun. He also had Mars conjunct Venus and conjunct Mercury. So he was the boss, and he was going to do it his way, at his command. Mars, the god of war, and Mercury, guess what, rules the hands. He killed George with his bare hands. His Neptune was opposing the sun. So that's self-deluding. That's a self-deluding perspective of reality that can just create enormous problems for yourself, because you can't see accurately. You cannot see yourself. This man thought he was a god, and he thought he could get away with it. He was delusional in his power hungry, sick and twisted ways. And he also had his Jupiter squaring Pluto, which gives you this larger than life sense about yourself, and you will not be stopped or held back. Look at that. You know, Pluto, the death planet, and his overblown Jupiter, see, it comes in so inadequate because Chiron's on it. So he's an overcompensating egomaniac. He felt small. He felt small with his power. So he overcompensated it, and Pluto, the death planet, triggered it. And that became his most lethal weapon, his ego. His ego is the driver in this. His delusions, his pathological delusions, and his ego played to win with a man's life. It's disgusting. When that Black Moon Lilith is on the sun right there, it makes you really, really impulsive. But when it's in Aries, it makes you feel that you put yourself in first place. You have this overly masculine energy, and you have a need to rise up, and you want to show solidarity with others and do things together with others, but only on the condition that they always happen your way. He needs to, I don't know if it will ever happen, he needs to learn to listen to others and to collaborate with others and to care about others and to feel for others and to develop compassion and empathy, like a good Pisces would. But I think he could never depend on anybody. And he became a fighter, and he became compelled to fight all the time. So his job was a fight. His job was a war zone. His job was a battle in his mind. And I don't think he could handle the emotions that he stuffed down. So he's having a relationship with himself. And he needs to learn the we in life. And when Aries goes wrong, you disadvantage others, you cheat others, and you refuse to compromise. It was a tit for tat game with him. And I think he had a grudge against George, and he was going to even the score. I do, because this was a game. This was a game to win. So look at the vertex at 0 degrees Leo. If you're undeveloped in Leo at 0 degrees, the most potent degree, the strongest degree, you become a narcissist. You become a full-blown narcissist. And you become psychologically crippling. You get a crippling ego complex that creates conflict everywhere you go. I have a feeling he was not very well liked. People probably feared him, so they respected him, but they didn't like him. I think he was indulgent. With the vertex conjuncting Saturn, he is the authority, he is the god, he is the cop god, he is the king, he is the ruler, he is the commander, he is the full-blown psychopathic, narcissistic god of the underworld. He doesn't think he's of the underworld. He thinks he's actually doing law and order. He also has this moon in the 8th house, which is ruled by Pluto. So power and sex and money is really important for him too. But the dark side of the moon in Scorpio is overcompensating, and it was triggered. He was emotionally triggered by that breakdown, by that Uranus. His Uranus trines Venus, and his Uranus with this trine to Mars in the 12th, he got erratic and combative, and he couldn't get out of the Mars. He could not stop himself. So Mars at the IC at 0 degrees Cancer. It's very weird to see 0 degrees twice in a chart. It's weird to see it once, let alone twice. I think he felt like he was the great, protector, like he was the Braveheart, that he was going to take on the enemies and, wear the badge of courage and with violence and force if he had to. And I think he had a very violent childhood. He saw death. He saw bullies early on. They formed his life. Bullies formed his life before the age of 12. Cancer and Mars goes inwards and they hold it in. So you don't see it, but they feel oftentimes when it's not healthy, they feel disempowered internally. And then it just pops one day. And in this chart, because I don't have their birth times, it's a little bit tough. But look at this. These guys had so much karma. They had previous karma. They were enemies in a last lifetime. George had the moon, the heart. And Chavin, I believe he killed him, wounded him in a last lifetime too. Or there was a battle between the two. This was a bloodbath before, and they had a familiar feeling with one another. Ironically, they have similar wounds. It's expressed in different ways. And they had an opportunity to heal through the power of communication. And so I think George passed his torch on to us. These people could have worked it out had Derek been a more advanced and evolved soul. Now, this is also very interesting. This is Chavin's career is on George's destiny. George will affect Chavin's career. Look at this. They were in a authority. They were in a conflict for power in this lifetime too. Here we see it in the past life, and here we see it in this life. And it went both ways. That's crazy. So Chavin's south node, dark side on George's Mars, and then George's past life, south node, dark side on Chavin's Mars. I just feel that there is a greater good. And George sacrificed his soul for the benefit of the world, for the benefit of Blacks, dark-skinned people, minorities, and those who suffer at the hands of injustice. He is such an empowering soul to all of us. Now, some people I'm reading feel he shouldn't be praised a hero. He shouldn't be praised a saint. Why don't we mourn the death of Kobe Bryant like we are him? I was sad at the death of Kobe Bryant, and I did do that chart too, and that broke my heart. It shattered my heart. That was horrifying and awful. But when I look at these charts, I see a destiny in George's death that is here for a much larger purpose than who he could be on earth. Who he could be on earth was too constricted and restrained. He had a bigger mission, and he had to die to do it. And he did. The interesting thing about Chavin, he has all those 12th house planets in Pisces. The day he killed George, he killed himself. And that's the paradox. That's the irony. I hope you liked this video. I hope it helped you. Please leave me a comment. Please do not put anything crass on this page. I can't handle it. It will hurt too bad because I care. And you can go check out all my other videos. Please become a subscriber. And if you like this work, come with me for a deeper understanding about astrology, looking at life and people and your life and destiny through an astrological lens. From my house to yours, I hope you're well.